So you're coming to me from a boat, is that right? Did
That
I
is
did
right.
I do my research correctly
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
finding out that you live on a boat?
Yeah, I
So
live on a
cool.
boat. I was
Um,
actually hoping to position the camera in a way that you could see all the other boats, but I haven't been able to
oh,
do that.
cool.
Uh, it would have been nice to have that as a background. But what happens is that
Just a
then I
cool
get
little
a
backdrop.
silhouette. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, wow, man, that is very cool. I can't say I've ever done a podcast where the guest has been on a boat. So this will be a first.
So hold on a second. Let's see if I can gallery and let's see if I so here's here's the view out here. And this is the best view here.
Okay, you're I don't know if it's my internet or what's going on, but it's, oh, there we go. It's caught up. I see it now. Oh, that's
Uh,
beautiful.
uh,
Wow. It's like a nice day there too.
it is, yeah. So here's the. I'm giving you the
Wow.
panorama.
A full tour. What a treat. Oh, that's so is that near Los Angeles? Did I see that correctly?
Yep, yep. And then I guess over here we got we got more boats.
Okay.
So there we go. That's
Wow.
the boat. The boat scene.
The boat scene, amazing, man. That's very cool that you the lifestyle you live out there.
Yeah. Although
Um,
not for long. I've been on the
not for
boat
long.
for 6 years,
Yeah.
and recently, yeah, early this year,
Yeah.
um, uh, I fell in love with this woman. She moved onto the boat, but she's not much of a boater.
The boat life isn't for her.
Not really.
Okay.
She'll
Yeah.
do it, but she it isn't what she really wants. And
Right.
so
Right.
so I we decided we were going to rent a house, and that's what we've done.
Okay. So going back to land.
Yep, back to the
Gotcha.
land.
Well, that's exciting that you found love in your life, but at the same time, bittersweet that the boat life, is coming to an end.
Yeah, I had my time.
Yeah,
I had
yeah.
my time. It's really nice, and you know what? If I make a bunch of money, maybe I'll buy another boat.
Hey, who knows if the book does really well?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, man, thank you so much for doing this. I'd love, I think as I mentioned to you when I reached out, like I had Dr. Robert Glover on the show, I think it was about a month ago, and it was awesome. It was the best, most well-received episode by the audience to that point, which is young men. A lot of guys
Mm-mm.
just went like, whoa. And so then when I came across your stuff in your book, I was like, oh, I got to have this guy on the show so we can just dig deeper. So in that episode, we kind of went over scratch the surface of what, nice guy syndrome is. How do you know if you're a nice guy? Very simply, how do you move? Like what kind of things to look at to become an integrated male? I'm hoping in this one, we just dig deeper into that, which I
Sure.
know is what your book really digs into, is like step by step how to become an integrated male. So,
Yeah. So
um,
so
yeah,
uh,
sorry.
that's all right. So can I tell a quick story that kind of explains, that kind of fills in exactly what you're talking about?
Yes, please do.
So Robert Glover, Dr. Robert Glover, who wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy, has become a friend of mine. He actually stays on the boat when he travels through Los Angeles, and
Oh, yeah.
I've stayed down in Puerto Vallarta with him and his wife, and it's his book is so right on. It's like really nails the syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Everybody reads it, goes, holy. crap, it's like he was following me around taking notes. Like, this
Yeah.
is so accurate. And so I had the same experience, and I had it back in 2012. And then I'm a therapist, so I started doing this work. I started offering free workshops, and over time, I kind of it became a big part of my practice.
Yeah.
And what happened was, a lot of guys who read his book said to me, "Okay, well, we read the book. Well, now what do we do?"
Right.
And because they were seeing me, if they were seeing me in private practice, I said, "Well, this is what we do. You keep coming to therapy, you keep paying me, and we'll get you there, right?"
Yeah.
But for a lot of guys, like in workshops or guys just talking, they didn't know. Like, well, how do I get? I know now. I read his book. I know where I am, and I know where I want to go. But how do I get there?
Right. What's the next step?
Where's the roadmap? Where's the? Right? So I said to Robert, Robert, you got to write a workbook for No More Mr. Nice Guy. And he said, I don't want to.
Right.
So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll write one with you. We'll do it together. And he said, I don't want to. So that left me to write the workbook. So it started out as a workbook. And then, because I've got my own mind and I've got my own experience, I added something to it, although I still remain kind of faithful to a lot of what he has in his book. So that's a kind of a description of what you'll get if you get my book, which is it does what guys have been asking for. It takes Robert's ideas, turns them into practical exercises, takes each exercise step by step, gives an example to show how it's done, and then over the course of 15 chapters, takes you through until you get to Integration City.
Integration City.
Right.
Final destination.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So thank you for taking us through that. I was curious, how did you end up writing this companion book with Dr. Robert Glover? So thanks for giving me and our audience just a little background. And now I'm gonna backpedal here and just give a little bit of an introduction. Obviously, you just gave quite an introduction, but I'm just gonna give a very quick introduction here to welcome you to the show officially. And then we'll kick into some questions, some conversation. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right, brother. So today we've got a psychotherapist from Los Angeles, California. Actually, he's on a boat, lives on a boat full time. Although, as he mentioned to me before the show, that boat life might be coming to an end soon, sadly. But over 20 years experience treating emotional issues, as he just mentioned in his backstory on his book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, The Hero's Journey, a step-by-step guide to becoming an integrated male. Since 2012, he's been helping nice guys find their way to greater confidence and masculinity. Dr. Michael Pariser, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you very much. It's really good to be here.
All right. Thanks for slowing down with us. So you brought us through what got you into the writing of this book, which, by the way, I bought it. I just started to read it. So I'm not all the way through, but
it's not a reading book. People everybody says the same thing to me.
Yeah.
I bought the book. I started reading it. I'm not all the way through.
Yeah.
It's not a reading book. It really is, even though it's a standalone book, and I have plenty of kind of my own ideas in there. It really is a workbook. It's a book to take you on a journey.
Right.
And you can't read about the whole journey, because all these exercises have to be done and experienced in order to take the trip to Integration City, to where you want to go.
Right. Is that why you went with the title, The Hero's Journey? Because the intention, the purpose of the book, the workbook, is to take the reader on a journey. It's not just like a sit down on a Sunday night and, get through a quarter of the book and be like enlightened. It's a workbook that you're constantly working through, implementing in your life. Is that more of the idea behind it?
Yeah, yeah. And in point of fact, I'm going to be forming groups next year to go through the book. But
Yep.
even if you don't like, you're not in a group with me, for guys who are listening to this, I recommend like form a cohort. It's not that hard to do,
Mhm.
whether you do it through Facebook or you do it through, your podcast, or reach out to each other, particularly in the days of COVID. Everybody's on internet anyway, and go through it like a chapter a month. Don't
Right.
go through it fast. Go
Right.
through it slowly and carefully, and do a chapter a month. And in a year or a year and a half, which sounds like a lot until you get into the work and you
Right.
realize the depth of it, when you finally get where you want to go, you will be a different man. But do it
Yep.
with other guys. I don't recommend doing it alone.
Wait, why is that? Why do you recommend not doing it by yourself? Just to hold yourself accountable through the implementation process?
That's part of it for
Yep.
sure. Another part of it is other guys will have ideas. Like you might come to an exercise that, oh, I know how what where I'm gonna apply this, and another one you go, fuck, I don't know. Like, and then somebody will have an idea, or somebody will have a better idea, or maybe there's a way two of you guys can do something
Yep.
together.
Yep.
Or and it's also the case that when you do the exercises and you come back to a group or to a cohort or to a comrade or a band of brothers, and you can say, well, I tried to do this, I couldn't do it. Or I tried to do it, but I'm not sure how well it came out. Listen to what happened. And then there's the feedback. So you're really kind of forming, this. I like the phrase "a band of brothers." You're forming this cohort of brothers who are working on this together. Can support each other, hold each other accountable, help each other with ideas, give each other feedback,
Yep.
and help carry you. And this may be the biggest benefit, is that on your own you may die out, give up, lose steam. But with the band of brothers, you will make it to the end.
I love it. I love it. I think a big part of, the self-help world is this kind of notion that it has to be self-help, right? That it's you with your book, just working through all of your shit by yourself. But I love how you encourage readers to band up in brotherhood and work through the book page by page. Now, when you kick off your book, as I mentioned, I started to work through it, not read it, but work through it. And the first paragraph just like hit me. I was like, whoa, you said, once upon a time, I was a nice guy, and a man, I was miserable. I couldn't understand why life didn't work for me the way it did for other guys. I was anxious, depressed, and angry at the world. Lovers, bosses, men, women, family, friends. No one could make me feel the way I wanted to feel. I hated them for it. I hated myself. Just powerful way to kick off the book. Can you talk a little? Obviously, you made it very evident right from the beginning. You went through a nice guy recovery journey, as I am going through right now. But can you talk a little bit about your own journey as a recovering nice guy?
Sure. It takes a long time.
Right.
I went slowly,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
went with right. But I have to say, the first part of it was reading Dr. Glover's book, and so the first part of the journey was realizing things differently. It's kind of like, one of these epiphanies. So, like, when I'm talking, in that paragraph you just read, I hated ex-lovers, future lovers, women who had power, my mother, my father, other
Yeah.
people, myself, and I thought my life didn't work because I had this problem and that problem and the other problem. Then I read Dr. Glover's book, and I sort of things came together. It's kind of like this. So imagine that you're in a swarm of bees, and they're all stinging you from all directions. That's how I thought of my problems. And then I read his book, and I realized, wait a minute, there's a hive here and a queen bee. It might be a little like my mother, but all right, okay. There is a central problem that I haven't been able to see before, and that all of the smaller problems, or most of my smaller problems, are tied into the bigger problem. And that enabled me to start on the journey by identifying the bigger problem and being able to address it directly. So rather than, well, what was I doing dating? How come I couldn't get laid the way other guys got laid? Or whatever, these kinds of issues. I started to look at how I am trying to be a nice guy, how I'm trying to have other people's needs met, how I'm trying to meet my own needs indirectly and dishonestly, how I'm applying covert contracts, how I'm not being open, emotional, vulnerable, and how I am being a nice guy and how it isn't working.
Right. Wow. So that just put it all into perspective succinctly. Like, this is the issue. This is the root of the issue.
Yes, that's right. So then I could go after the root rather than going after trying to pull leaves off the tree and have them keep growing back.
Right. Trying to mask all these different problems, which you thought were root problems, but in reality were not.
That's right.
Amazing, man. So obviously your book works towards becoming an integrated male. We had, as mentioned, Dr. Robert Glover on the show. He talked about what an integrated male was. I'm curious what your definition of an integrated male is. If you had to say, this is what you're working towards, can you describe what that man looks like?
Yeah, I want to describe it from the inside first. Integration is it's primarily about self-acceptance. And it's about the acceptance of all of you. It's radical self-acceptance. And what that means is you are who you are at any given moment of time. And that has to be okay, even though there are things you want to change. So there's a kind of a dynamic tension between acceptance and the ambition to grow. The way I work it out for me is I integrate everything that I am, good, bad, and otherwise. And then I can look at it and say, gee, I'd like to be a little more of this or a lot more of that or a lot less of this. But in the meantime, I am all of me. Rather than trying to pretend I am something I'm not, like a nice guy, because I'm not a nice guy.
Right.
I'd like to try to accept, for example, I have good tendencies. I have bad tendencies. I have selfless, altruistic impulses. I have selfish and greedy impulses. I am happy. I'm sad. I'm warm. I'm cold. I like people. I hate people. I'm sweet and kind. I'm also malicious and spiteful. I'm like everything, and all at once. And whatever the situation is, it's going to trigger some aspects of me, and I just simply want to accept whatever aspects get triggered rather than to criticize them.
Mm,
and see them as indications that there's something wrong with me.
mm,
It's just what's happening.
right.
And then I can deal with what's happening, particularly if I accept it, integrate it into a whole person, then I can use it to make sense of the experience and structure a constructive response. In other
Mm,
words, um, by being all of me and not rejecting it, I
mhm.
can use what I feel to live a better life, to relate better to other people and to live a better life.
Wow. Yes. So it sounds like nice guys, it all comes from this core belief that like I am unlovable, even to myself. Like I am not even lovable by myself. And therefore I need to mask all these things that are quote unquote wrong with me and make me unlovable. And so you're saying to move to integration is to accept all of those parts and move towards, I know it's a cliche overused term, but self-love and, really embracing and honoring all parts of yourself and from that place act. Is that accurate?
Not quite. The opposite of self-love, hate might not be self-love, or if it
Ooh,
is
okay.
self-love, it doesn't really work. It's
Yeah.
kind of like I've been living with shit-colored glasses, and now I'm going to put on rose-colored glasses, and it
Right.
doesn't work. So it's not about replacing self-hatred with self-love.
Mm-hmm.
It's about self-acceptance, which means sometimes I love myself and sometimes I hate
Mm,
myself. And
right.
both of those are okay. Even
Ah,
though um, even though I don't like hating myself,
right.
sometimes I hate myself, and I'm much more interested in why I'm hating myself at a given moment of time than actually condemning myself for the self-hatred and trying to replace it with something else.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. That I think that makes total sense. That it's not a natural thing to jump from self-hatred to rose-colored glasses, self-love necessarily, but that
And it's all
acceptance is the key piece there.
that's right. And it's also not possible.
Hmm.
I can't go, I've hated myself for 30, 40, 50 years. Now I love myself.
Right,
Fuck that.
right.
That doesn't work.
Sounds real good
People,
in theory.
it sounds real good in self-help books, but it doesn't work.
Right, right,
You can't change the way you're structured.
right.
It doesn't just by snapping your fingers. Oh, now I love myself. I
Yeah.
hate broccoli. No, I love broccoli. No, you don't. You hate broccoli. Fuck. No, you can't. You can't. I'm sorry. I get excited.
No, I love
I
it.
got to slow down, man.
There we go.
It's not about trying to change from dark to light.
Mm,
The opposite of black and white is not white and black. It's technicolor.
mm,
You have to accept the complexity of the world, irreducible complexity of the world, and your own complexity and imperfections. And that's how it works. It's about being a human being,
mm,
not moving to an elevated state of exalted
mm.
radiance.
Right. Enlightenment and yeah.
Right. Right. No, it's not. It's about being a human being. And sometimes we're like greedy and stupid and malicious and spiteful and selfish.
Right,
Okay.
right. Yeah,
And
that's who we
sometimes
are.
that's and it's okay because that's human.
Yeah, yeah.
That doesn't mean I encourage spite and malice and greed in myself. It just means sometimes I recognize I have those impulses.
Yeah. Um, okay, I love that. We could talk about that all day, but let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit of this unlovable belief that nice guys have. Um, so I know you talk about how even when nice guys are faced with love, when love is put in their face, they'll dismiss it sometimes, even though it's authentic, just to validate this belief of like I am unlovable. And I know I've done this before in getting into relation with people who were unavailable from the start, but and through that was fulfilling that prophecy and that belief in my head. But Can you talk a little bit about this concept and love substitutes that guys tend to create?
Okay, so this is a big topic. And
Hmm.
so, and it's kind of the central topic, frankly, for nice guys and also for lots of other people. We all have this kind of core, what I call a core depressive narrative,
Hmm.
which is the idea, it's an anxiety. It's based in an anxiety that we're all going to be abandoned and we're going to be left alone. And we are, because we're unlovable, and we're unlovable because there's something wrong with us.
Hmm.
We don't know what that wrong thing is, but there's something wrong with us, and it renders us either unlovable or subhuman or unfit for human company.
Right.
It comes from childhood. The quick story is it comes from childhood, where it's an explanation for why your parents were behaving the way they were towards you. They were punishing you or neglecting you or liked your brother or better or your sister better or whatever it was. And it left, and you needed to understand, like, why was this happening so you could try to do something about it. But eventually you couldn't do anything about it. And you came to the conclusion there's must be something fundamentally wrong with me. Of course, when you're 6 years old, that's the best you can do. You can't stop and think, well, my father has emotional issues that are unresolved. That's why he drinks and doesn't come home. And my mother, had a crazy set of parents herself, and that's why she's in a dark room all day, taking medication and binge watching television. So, but eventually we get to this point. It's a lowered status point. And it is, by the way, just quick side thing. I went to a lecture by a woman who works a lot with animals, and she says animals get depressed too. Like, the two rams, butt heads because they want to be the alpha male.
Yeah.
Right. So, and we always think, oh, he won. Now he's the alpha male. What happens to the other guy?
Right.
You ever ask yourself, what happens to the loser?
Who's emasculated?
He does not become, number two.
Right.
He becomes number zero.
Right.
Yeah. And oftentimes he'll wander off into the woods and die.
What? Wow.
And they exhibit, and this is true of lots of mammals, they exhibit all kinds of the symptoms of clinical depression.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's what depression is, according to this woman. It's the experience of a lowered status. And so we believe ourselves to be subhuman. We are not second in command. We are below all other human beings.
Wow.
That's the unlovability. And so nice guys, so if you kind of have this core belief, and frankly, all human beings have it to a certain extent. It's an experience.
So everybody's got trauma from when they're growing up, where they feel to some extent, obviously different varying degrees, that I am below the human, whatever you would call it, threshold.
Right. Yeah. I'm a toad that lives under a bridge, or an ogre, or an alien, or a monster, right?
Yeah.
And we all have it to a certain extent. Some people a little, some people a lot. I had it a lot. And when you have it, then your goal is to, first you might try to get over it, but you might numb yourself. It's to protect yourself from it, and you have two goals. One is to protect yourself from the experience, which is stay out of depression.
Yeah.
The second is to hide it from the world.
Yeah.
And maybe get out of it if possible. So, so the way people do that is they take drugs and alcohol so they don't experience it. Or, sorry, let me turn this off. So what they do is they develop interpersonal strategies, ways of being with other people that are designed to hide their flaws, which would reveal their subhumanness, and to get their needs met. So some people, let's say someone who's narcissistic will say, look at me, how great I am. You should like worship me. And someone who's what's called histrionic will be like on stage all the time and be really dramatic, right? Right. Nice guys, nice guy-ness is a strategy. Nice guy syndrome is a collection of tactics or strategies. It's a game plan,
right?
That has become a way of being. It's a game plan to hide flaws, which will reveal my subhumanness, right? And to get what I want from you and other people, without my having to ask, because asking is itself a flaw that reveals my badness. So I can't ask. So I have to do it in a tricky, roundabout way. I have to be a Boy Scout and get a merit badge.
Right. Covert contracts.
Exactly. So that brings me to the other thing you mentioned, which is love substitutes. So tricky concept, but really, I think important. If I believe I am unlovable, then, and you say you love me, I don't believe you. I can't believe you because I'm subhuman and unlovable. So if you say you love me, you're deceived or lying, or you have some ulterior motive, or God only knows what it is, right? But because I can't be loved, I'm not lovable. So it, by the way, that sets up this kind of conflict. Either you're right or I'm right. And guess who normally I pick? Pick me. I'm right. I'm unlovable. You're wrong. You're deceived. You're lying.
Right.
Okay. As a therapist, by the way, and I would be in this situation with patients, and they would tell me how unlovable they are, and I would say, well, gee, that's interesting, because I don't find you unlovable. You know, you seem pretty lovable to me. You know, not erotically. You know, but you seem like a lovable person. And they would go through all kinds of contortions, mental contortions. I pay you. Right? That's why you're saying that. Or you're a therapist. Therapists are supposed to say that. Or you're a therapist and a nice guy. So you're gonna, you want me to keep coming so you'll get the money. Or like it's just
like crazy the extents will go to prove the beliefs that we believe to be true.
That's right. And so that's when I would say to them, isn't it crazy the extent you're going to prove a belief you think is true?
Yeah.
And I would say, and that allowed me then to say to them, what are you afraid is going to happen if you change this belief? And of course they go, oh no, life's going to be great if I don't think of it. So why are you holding on so tight? So, and then we got to the catastrophe that would befall them if they let go of the belief.
Right.
Which is they don't know who they are.
Oh.
It's complete obliteration of their identity.
Right.
If your identity is as an unlovable subhuman troll, and I said, and you gave that up, who would you be?
Then what's there? Yeah, what's left?
What's left?
Wow.
And because you can't be a radiant prince. That's what you'd like to be. But you can't be that. You know you're not.
Yeah.
So who are you? There's nothing left.
Wow.
So, okay. So let's go to love substitutes. So this is a temporary thing that nice guys, this is really big in the life of nice guys. If I'm unlovable and you say you love me and I can't, okay. So even though I think I'm trying to get love, I can't get love because I'm unlovable. But what can I get instead? What is a good substitute? So what I get is I do nice things, right? I wash the dishes, or I cook you dinner, or I pick up, I call you up and say, hey, I'm at the grocery store, do you want something? Or whatever it is. And what do I get? I get gratitude, I get validation, I get appreciation, acknowledgement. I get all of these things, and they're good.
Right.
They're good. It's nice to get. They feel good, right?
Feel good in the moment. Yeah.
The problem is they don't last, and so I need to have more, and more, and more, and that's why nice guys can't ever rest.
Right.
They're always They're always at work. I'm if I got a girlfriend, I'm emptying her dishwasher or cooking her pasta or going down and giving her orgasms or whatever it is. I'm going to work to make her happy so that I can get filled up.
Right. So in essence, they're trading true, instead of receiving love, which is totally against what they believe is a nice guy, they substitute that with doing nice things but in a manipulative sort of way to receive validation.
That's right. Because they're giving to get.
Right. Right.
And the problem, as I see it, is that all these nice things are like acknowledgement and gratitude. They feel nice, but they're not love. And if you're looking for love, they're not love. And secondly, they don't last. So you have to keep doing it. And the analogy that I like is if you have a car with a hole in the gas tank, you could get from one gas station to another, which is one validation to another, but you can't take a long road trip because sooner or later the gas tank runs out. And the long road trip is like a love. A loving, a solid, loving relationship. Right. So you have to give up the search for the validation, and you have to stand in the vulnerability of your desire for love.
Right.
And then you have to feel the love, and you have to accept that you are being loved, even though you believe yourself to be unlovable. And you have to this is going to set up what's called a cognitive dissonance. And you're going to have to work your way through this. And you're going to have to give up the idea that you're unlovable. And it's going to be hard to do.
Right. And I would imagine that in that that's probably a very long, slow process. But in that process, I would imagine the nice guys going through a period where they're like, oh, I got to go do this. I got to go do this. I got to, wash her dishes. I got to make her laugh. I got to do all these to receive that validation. But you got to, aptly with the name of the show, slow down in those moments and instead just sit there in that uncomfortableness and realize that you're willing to receive love. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, I would. Sit there, and you have to now start taking risks that you couldn't take before. So here, my favorite example is, because it's always simple and people get it, is I'm going to take a woman out to dinner.
Yeah.
So as a nice guy, what do? I call her up and I say, where do you want to go for dinner?
Yeah.
But as a not nice guy or a recovering nice guy, what I do is I figure out where I want to go for dinner.
Yeah.
And I tell her that. And that doesn't mean she has to agree.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put myself out there first. And that's a risk, because in the kind of psyche of a nice guy, I don't even know what I want. So I actually have to sit by myself for an hour and pretend she doesn't exist to figure out where I want to go to dinner. And the second thing is, what if she says, no, I don't, I want to go to Italian. No, I don't like Italian. It makes me fat, gives me gas. Oh, I've insulted this, but it's good. Yeah. So there's that risk. And then there's the risk of, well, How selfish can you be? You're taking me out to dinner and you're going to like pick the restaurant? Well, yes.
There's food that I like.
So, yeah, so that's a risk. You have to stand there and say, here is what I want. You don't insist on it, but you have to say it, and you have to not apologize for it.
Right. So I think in those situations, the hesitation of being a nice guy, as you say, is, they'll think they're coming off as aggressive or selfish. And with the recent rise of, toxic masculinity, and I know you talk about in your book the difference between toxic masculinity and healthy masculinity. Obviously, the line though is becoming more and more unclear for dudes out there who are like, I don't know if I'm being too aggressive right now. I don't know if I'm, being too angry, assertive of what I want. What is the distinction there? How do you draw that line between, when you're asserting your masculinity in a healthy way versus a toxic way?
Good question. So what we want to do, and by the way, my book has a whole chapter on assertiveness, and I did that. It's not in Dr. Glover's book, but it's something that was happening in the 1970s. There were like assertiveness training workshops and stuff, but they disappeared. And it's sad because it wasn't a cult. Assertiveness is not a cult. It's a healthy way of being in the world, right? But it disappeared, and I hope it comes back. Anyway, what is assertiveness? So assertiveness has to be distinguished from three other modes of interacting with other people: passivity, aggression, and passive aggression. So in passivity, I say, what do you want? And I don't put out my wants. And so it's all about what you want. In aggression, it's here's what we're doing, right? I'm the boss. We're going to do what I want.
Right.
And that's just the flip side of passivity. In passivity, you count. In aggression, only I count. In passive aggressive, I agree to go along with you. Oh, you want sushi? Oh, okay. And then when we get to the sushi place, I don't like the smell, or
just miserable. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you know what? I show up at half an hour late, and then the reservation gets canceled. Assertiveness is a whole different animal. It's I put out what I want, and I want to hear what you want. And then I want us to talk together about what it is. Now, you may say, just okay. You may be okay with what I want. I'd like to have sushi tonight. You might say, okay, great. Sushi. I love sushi. Let's go have sushi. Right. Or you may say, no, I don't want sushi tonight. I would rather go for, lasagna. Okay. Now we talk about it. I want, Chinese and you want Italian. So maybe where there's a Chinese-Italian restaurant, or maybe we go to the food court and I have Chinese and you have Italian, or maybe we stay home and eat leftovers, or maybe we go to a Siberian restaurant, or, we'll negotiate. But it's about putting out what you want. And there's a phrase I like, which is standing in the vulnerability of your desire. In other words, I put it out there. Hey, honey, I'm jonesing for, egg foo young. Let's go have Chinese food tonight. And stop there. Shut up. Shut the fuck up at that point. Don't go if you really want it, but if you don't want it, we could have something else. And what do you want? Because maybe I don't even really want Chinese. And I remember you like, let's go have sushi. Don't do that shit. Say, I'd like to have Chinese food tonight, honey. And then shut up.
And then
Shut
shut the fuck
the
up.
fuck up
I love it.
and wait and see what happens next.
And by the way, I imagine this could be extrapolated out of this sushi versus lasagna example into a broader
No, it's
conversation
only
of
it's only sushi and lasagna.
just related to sushi and lasagna. A broader conversation in relationships where it's like, this is what this is something that's important for me. This is a need that I have in this relationship. I don't know off the top of my head what that looks like. I'm sure you've worked with a lot of nice guys in relation with larger examples than
Well,
the cuisine they like.
sure. And here's a little tip for guys out there. I don't love the word need.
Yeah.
You hear it all the time, but I
Yeah.
don't like it very much at all,
Okay.
because it comes with an imperative. It comes with a requirement. If I say to you, I'd like Chinese food tonight,
Yeah.
or I'd like to move to Cleveland. There's a job, and I've been offered a promotion, and so I'd like to take the promotion, but it means we have to move to Toledo or whatever.
Mm.
So, but I say I want to. That gives you the right to say, oh, okay, but here's what I want. But what if I said to you, I need to?
Right.
It
That's
feels
closing off the conversation, right?
Yes, it doesn't give you much in the way of freedom of choice. Your choices get narrowed down to, I give it to you or I don't. And if I don't give it to you, there's going to be some disastrous consequence. So
right.
I don't use need very much. I only use it in order to. I need to have a car in order to drive to the store.
Gotcha.
I need to have food in order to eat. But when we're talking in relationship, I want. I don't need.
Right. Which goes along with your core message that you sent out, which was to stand in the power of, I think it was stand in
The
the power of your vulnerability of your desire.
That's
and
right.
Desire really is a want when we think about it, right?
That's right. And standing in the vulnerability means that you're open. He or she can say anything, and the other person has now the right to say anything.
Right.
Which is what I want. I don't want. One of the things that nice guy syndrome is it's a management strategy. It's designed to limit your options.
Right.
It's designed to turn you into an automaton. If I'm nice, you are supposed to do X and you are not supposed to do Y or Z. And it takes away your freedom. And if you don't do what I want you to do, then I'm going to be angry and resentful.
Oh boy. Okay. Love that. We could dig into that for longer. How are we doing for time here, Dr. Parisa?
Yeah, we're doing good. We're doing good on my end.
Likewise here. I just don't want to get in a situation where we're going over and you have to cut it off. But I do want to ask you about this one other concept, which I found super interesting and what I've worked through in your book so far. And that is you talk about when we're getting into romantic relationships, there's three aspects or stages in that. And the first being interest, the second being intimacy, and the third being commitment. And you said that there's a very common tendency for guys to confuse interest and intimacy, thus moving into commitment too early. And I read this and I was like, oh boy, yes, I resonate with that. Like, when you meet a girl and she's interested, and I'm instantly thinking she's the one. And then try to get it to move into commitment much too early when she's not even at that intimacy stage. Can you talk a little bit about these three concepts and, how we can go about distinguishing interest from intimacy in relationship?
Sure. So, first of all, I want to be careful about one word that you used.
Okay.
The word was stages, because they're not stages.
Ooh, okay.
Stage theories go 1, 2, 3 in some sort of order. But in point of fact, all of these kind of basically start at the same time. So I think of them as facets or aspects of dating and relating. So interest is excitement.
Mm.
It's an activation. It's an arousal state. Okay. I'm interested in being with you. I'm interested in what you have to say. I'm interested in your smile. I'm curious about what you think. I'm I'm excited to be around you. You tickle me. I want to go do things with you. And this is interest. Intimacy is a slower process of getting to know you. I see how you respond emotionally when I say this. I get that you have a vulnerability over here. I'm getting to know kind of the things you like and you don't like. In particular, what I'm getting is a knowledge and an experience of how we are together. That's intimacy. Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Commitment is two things. Thing one is a sense of being attached to each other, like a feeling of we are committed to each other. It's an emotional sense. But the other meaning of commitment is it's almost a legal term. It's a contract.
Right.
And it takes different forms. I agreed to go out with you on Friday night. I agree to move in together. I agree to, lend you my
have a
car.
kid
I
with
agree
you.
to get
Yeah.
engaged, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. So here's the problem. I put that right here for now, and let's go back for 1 second to I am unlovable. Okay. If I am unlovable, I can't let anybody know that. And what I'm looking for is something to happen really fast before my subhuman unlovability, gets discovered. Right. I gotta lock this woman down. And I am now confusing interest and intimacy at the same time that I'm doing that. She's interested. Oh, and we're just hitting it off, and she's laughing at my jokes. Oh, we're like, oh, we're like this. We're the same, right? It's like an hour and a half into the date, right? We're soulmates.
She's the one. Yeah.
She's the one, right? She's the one who has the golden key, the one that unlocks the kingdom of heaven and lifts me out of my subhuman hell and plants me on the rosy, radiant cloud 9, right?
Yep.
So for all those reasons, I will now move into a contract. I will try to lock this, seal the deal, and get this woman locked up. And and women do it too. It's not just us.
Right. Yep.
Women do it too. And so that's why, you hear guys talking about how, on our first date, we were talking about what our children would look like, how beautiful they would be, and where we would live, and where we would take vacations. And it's a disaster.
Boy.
It's a disaster because you're substituting. You got caught up in the interest. You skipped intimacy completely because that's a process that got to take 1 to 3 years to feel kind of intimate with somebody. And you move straight past a sense of commitment into a contract. And that's what a lot of guys do.
Wow. Okay. So it's like all stemming from, as you say, this place of I am unlovable, that I need to speed up this thing because I'm interested in her, because there's that
And she's
interest
interested
component,
in
and she's
me,
interested in me. It's
which
a
is
two-way
which
street.
is oh my God, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
How
just
could a
lock her
woman
in.
this beautiful be interested in an unlovable, ugly old toad like me?
So by virtue of the root cause of that being the unlovableness, if that's a word, I would imagine that then the solution when you're working with nice guys who find themselves entering relationships where they're, there's no intimacy, there's interest, and they're trying to jump to that commitment stage, that the cure to this is to accept.
Throw down, man.
Throw down, man, and accept all parts of
Yeah.
oneself.
And not just accept, I actually encourage them to advertise their bad parts.
Uh,
In
like
other
open up
words,
emotionally.
open up
Um,
emotionally and say, like, right now I don't like what you're saying, or I don't like what you just did, or
yeah,
I know that you like this candidate for president and I don't like that candidate for president, and I know you like these kinds of movies, I don't like those kinds of movies.
right. Which gets
Uh,
back to assertiveness, right? It's
that's
just
right.
throwing out there what you desire.
Right. And open up about your own flaws, like I saw this guy walking down the street and $100 bill dropped out of his pocket, and I went and I picked it up, and boy, oh boy, was I tempted to keep it because I could use the money.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it back. I wouldn't even say what I did with it. I'd be interested
Right.
in see what the other person says, but
Right.
I want to cop to my own temptation
Yeah.
in that particular situation.
Right. Wow. Okay. And I think Dr. Glover also talks a lot about just acting on of what you feel impulsively when on dates with people, instead of trying to fabricate who you are in that
Right.
moment, but just literally whatever comes into your freaking mind, let that out.
That's
Because
right. Yeah, that's the same thing.
yeah,
You're absolutely right. Just say what comes to your mind, and then stand in the vulnerability, and don't apologize for it. Just
Ooh,
say it. See
yeah,
what happens.
yeah.
See where it goes.
Oh boy. Okay. I love that. Thanks for diving into that. I know we're running short in time here, Dr. Priester. So I do have one final question for you. It's a question I ask all guests on the Slow Down Man, the podcast.
You mean I don't get a special question? I get the
Hey, you
same
know what?
old
I'll
question
deliver it.
everybody else gets.
I'll deliver it a little bit differently,
Oh, okay.
just in honor
Yeah.
of you being on the show and being on a boat, the first
All right.
guest to
So
be on a
give
boat.
it a kind of a nautical kind of
Okay.
a
So,
nautical spin.
okay. So picture this: you can send a telegram. This is how I'm making it different. A telegram to the version of yourself who is at the lowest point, quote unquote, of your life, with a message to help you get through that time, or if something you needed to hear during that time. What would you scribe onto that telegram with your felt pen, if you had that opportunity?
Dive deep. Don't try to escape it.
Hmm.
You're going in the wrong direction. Turn around. Don't try to make it go away. Go into the darkness and stay there. You will eventually you will come out the other side a happier man.
Wow. Lean into it. Go inwards.
Dive into darkness.
Hmm.
There's a quote I like that I use as one of the epigraphs in one of the chapters,
Hmm.
and it is from Dante's Inferno. And what he says is, the gates of hell open from the inside. In other words, you can't get out of the bad feeling, and the gates of hell open from the inside. You have to dwell in your darkness to
Yeah.
be able to get into the light.
Bro, which is not what typically people want to hear when they're going through a tough time, but that's so powerful. Thank you, my man, for doing this.
You.
I'll obviously link to your book on Amazon, No More Mr. Nice Guy, The Hero's Journey, a step-by-step guide to becoming an integrated male. Where else can our audience go to connect with you, follow you, et cetera, et cetera?
So I'm on Facebook, Dr. Michael Pariser. I have my own website, which is www.drpariser.com. And I'll be forming these hero's journey groups. Maybe I might do a couple of short groups, kind of intro groups, and then I'll do longer groups. And I also have a low-cost monthly workshop that I do. It's on meetup.com called The Remasculators, R-E hyphen, you have to put the hyphen in, The Remasculators. So instead of being emasculated, we are being remasculated.
Oh, I love
we
that
are growing our sack back. We're growing our sack back.
Growing our sack back. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks again, my man. Appreciate it sincerely. Yes, and yeah, we'll keep in touch.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mitch.